something you might not know about Canada.
Hi, I'm Don Tapscott, and before the break, I promised to tell you about the digital office. In the 1970s, the coolest decade of all time, the office was full of strange things like typewriters, dictaphones, adding machines, and mimeographs. Telephones were connected to a wire, so people could only reach you when you were in the office. God, I miss that. Not now! In 1978, the Canadian company Bell Northern Research wondered what would happen if every desk had a computer on it connected to a vast internetwork. Their incredibly handsome staff created an office that used crazy things like email, word processing, texting, and document management. Then B&R pitted the computerized workers against the computerless old-school test group. This first ever controlled experiment proved that the digital workers were more efficient, innovative, and effective. And they had more fun, too. And within only 15 years, office workers across the globe were playing electronic solitaire and watching cat videos to their heart's content. And that's something you might not know about Canada.
Hello, I'm Don Tapscott, and it's great to be starting your second day. I wish I was there with you, but soon. I'd like to introduce a new concept today, Trivergence. You haven't heard this word. It's not in the dictionary. It's a neologism. And it refers to the convergence of AI, machine learning, blockchain, and the Internet of Things. And these three technologies coming together, I believe, will be the foundation for innovation and problem solving for the decades ahead. So let's start with the background on the business environment. We're coming to an end, hopefully, to this pandemic. It's becoming an endemic. And the costs have been devastating on a scale perhaps not known in modern history. And this is really one of those rare turning points where the pandemic is leading to big changes in our economy, in our behavior, in our society. And some leaders that have failed will be replaced or are being replaced. And it's also challenged many of our institutions. How can it be that supply chains can't deliver baby food in the United States? This is the year 2022. Our systems for health data, we've been unable to aggregate and anonymize health data to get warning systems and to fight a pandemic effectively. And when the dust settles, as it surely will, many of our institutions need to change. And it turns out that our systems need to change as well. The pandemic, of course, has accelerated many of the trends of the digital age by years or even decades. We're all working online, we're presenting online, we're entertaining ourselves online, we're exercising online with Pelotons, we're ordering food to our homes. That doesn't mean that we won't go out, but many of these institutions are changed forever, and there'll be a hybrid model of just about everything going forward. This is creating a demand pull for a rethinking of technology and business systems. At the same time, there's a technology push coming from a new generation of technology. And let me just give you a little bit of background on that, if I may. I wrote a couple of books in the 1980s that nobody read. I think my mother bought most of the copies. And but I started writing bestsellers in the early 90s. Paradigm Shift, it's obviously a big book, and The Digital Economy, they say, was the first bestseller about the web and business. And 20 years after The Digital Economy, I was asked to write the anniversary edition. And I had to think about where have we been and where are we coming? And it occurred to me that we've kind of been through a first era of the digital age. We've had mainframes, mini computers, PCs, the internet, the web, the mobile web, social media, the cloud, big data. And now we're entering a second era where technology is infusing itself into everything, where we have technology that learns And I found myself coming to a surprising conclusion that the foundational technology for all of that would be blockchain or the underlying technology of cryptocurrencies. And when all is said and done, there are really three big technologies that are affecting things. The first is AI. And AI, and I would say machine learning as well. The momentum behind AI has been building for some time, thanks in part to the massive amounts of data that computers can gather about business, society, our lives. And machines can now learn. They can predict various futures. And in fact, they can do things that they weren't programmed to do. Now, AI won't be running on some giant mainframe. It will be decentralized and it will be distributed. Consider medicine. From industrial age medicine, we have this one size fits all model of medicine. I'm a physician, I have knowledge, you're a patient, you don't, you're a passive recipient of my knowledge. I will give you my knowledge, and please don't collaborate or try and get information from other sources. And AI is going to start to change that, in that algorithms will enable doctors and hospitals to better analyze all this data and to customize healthcare to specific genes and to the environment, to the lifestyle of each individual patient. And patients also will have the tools to be able to better understand their health, from diagnosing brain tumors to deciding which cancer treatment will work best for an individual. AI will drive the personalized medicine revolution and the collaborative revolution in medicine as well. Now, the second big change is the Internet of Things. Essentially, what's happening is that we have millions, soon billions of inert objects that are becoming smart communicating devices. And this is a really big deal because it's not just that these devices will be communicating, but they'll be doing transactions as well. So this light bulb in front of me here will search a distributed power grid to find the right kind of power. Under the instructions that I will give it, I want you to find green power, I want you to take cost into advantage, and I want that power to always be available. And I want you to always pay your bills. So the light bulb, when it purchases the power, will instantly pay its bill, and the reputation of that light bulb will be enhanced as a trustworthy device. So think about the physical world becoming animated and becoming alive. The third thing is, in fact, blockchain. To just use that last Internet of Things example, those transactions are not going to go through Visa. They're going to go through a distributed ledger. And let me just give you a little background like that about that. To me, blockchain technology really represents a second era of the internet. For decades, we've had an internet of information. But if I send you some information, a PDF, an email, a photo, whatever, I'm actually not sending you the information, I'm sending you a copy. And that works great for information. But when it comes to assets, things of value that really matter, like money or securities or intellectual property or contracts or deeds or loyalty points, the data in our identity, cultural assets like art or music or a vote. A vote's an asset, something of value that belongs to somebody. When it comes to assets, copying those is not a good idea. You don't want someone copying your vote or your identity. And if I send you $1,000, it's really important that I don't still have the money, right? So cryptographers have called this the double spend problem for decades. And the way we manage this problem in our economy is through intermediaries, banks, credit card companies, stock exchanges, insurance companies, transfer agents, social media companies. And they perform all of the business and transaction logic of every type of business. And overall, they've done an okay job. There've been problems. One subset of those, Wall Street, almost brought down capitalism in 2008. But what if there were not just an internet of information? What if there were an internet of value, some kind of vast global distributed ledger, where anything of value, from money to securities to art to a vote, could be managed, stored, transacted in a secure and private way? Well, that's essentially what Satoshi Nakamoto started. In 2008, Satoshi cracked the double spend problem. And for the first time in history, people could now do transactions peer-to-peer. And the underlying blockchain technology is a really big deal. And it's at the heart of this Trivergence, because never before could people on a mass scale or organizations trust each other to do transactions, to secure, manage, store, communicate, spy, sell assets without an intermediary. Trust is being achieved by cryptography, collaboration, and some clever code, which is why we call it the trust protocol. This is a native digital medium for trust. Now, other buzzwords. How does the Web3 fit into this? Well, it's the same thing as blockchain. We had a first web, the read web. Remember, you could just go and check out a website, interesting information. Then we had the read write web, and the read write web, where you could do things on the internet. You could go to Wikipedia, create a page. You could collaborate on social media. And now we have the read, write, own web, where we not only deal with information, we deal with assets and value. And as a creator, you get to own it. We'll come back to that in a second. So this internet of value is important, and it's at the heart of Trivergence. And so I got lucky with the timing of this book. My son was my co-author, and I got lucky with him too, being the co-author. And it became the big book on this topic. And as some of you know, my TED Talk is the big talk on this topic too. This is like 6 million views. That's ancient. It's gone up way since then. So just one more word on this one, that Bitcoin was to the internet of value as email was to the internet of information. Email was the first app. Bitcoin is the first app of the internet of value. But then the web came up, remember, with the internet of information. And we saw the rise of general purpose platforms where you could build any app. That's what's happening today. Hyperledger, Ethereum, and through the use of smart contracts, just contracts that self-execute, we can do almost anything. And now we have these extraordinary new Web3 platforms. Solana, scalable layer 1 blockchain platform like Ethereum, Polkadot, along with Cosmos, trying to create the internet of blockchains or interoperability. Polygon is a layer 2 scaling solution on top of Ethereum and so on. So Trivergence, you heard it here first. Who knows if it'll become the singularity or something like that. But I think this is an important idea. So I don't have a lot of time today, so let me fly through. I'll try and spend a minute on 7 institutions. I could talk about 20 of them, and each of these is a 1-hour talk. So if the organizers want to give me 7 hours, then we can really dig into it. No, that's not going to happen. So let's start with financial services, because that's a big one that people talk about. So things, we have wallets now that look like this. And AI, all this data is being analyzed. And we have blockchain platforms enabling cryptocurrencies, Trivergence. Now, the first one is community-based currencies like Bitcoin. And the amazing thing about them is that they work. but they just arise from the community. And for those of you who've invested in this stuff, you're probably hurting right now because crypto has had its .com crash. I was there in 2000. I actually wrote a book that was Business Week, gave it the best review of a book ever. It's called Digital Capital. And the Business Week said the book was pure enlightenment, but it came out the month NASDAQ crashed, March of 2000. And the .coms went from a value of say 100 down to a value of 1. That's how bad it was. Now, the weird thing about .coms is they weren't all bad ideas. In fact, most of them were pretty good ideas. There'd just been a whole period of hype, and there was an idea whose time had not come. And what happened was many of those platforms kind of disappeared, and a similar thing is happening today. So will crypto come back? Yeah. Did the internet come back? Yeah. We have some companies like Amazon with the Web2, Facebook, that are kind of big companies. Apple's a pretty big company. But this is what happens with a whole new paradigm in technology. Now, the second type of cryptocurrency are corporate cryptocurrencies. The big effort here was from Facebook to create Diem, but that didn't work because not a lot of people like Facebook. The idea wasn't a bad one, though. Mark Zuckerberg said it should be as easy to send money as it is to send a text message. And then we have central bank digital currencies. And these are fiat currencies that become digitized, creating the digital dollar, the digital pound, the digital euro, the digital RMB in China. And China, in fact, is leading this whole thing all around the world. And that's a big concern to the Federal Reserve in the United States, because if they roll this currency out, they could replace the US dollar as the currency of record. So the financial industry is a lot more than just money, though. This is a Rube Goldberg machine. That's what it's called, a super complicated thing that does something really simple. To me, that's what the banking industry is. It's a Rube Goldberg machine. It does simple things. It stores value, money, securities, whatever, policies. Used to be in safes. Now it's online. It moves value, moves money, moves stocks. Because it moves value, it gets to lend value, personal loans, commercial loans, so on. It funds and invests value. You have venture capital, mutual funds, hedge funds, all kinds of ways of investing funds. It exchanges value, creates markets like stock markets. It insures value, manages risk. The insurance companies reinsures. It analyzes value. It's a big industry doing that. It accounts for and audits value, accounting companies, and it authenticates value and identity. DeFi is the replacement of all of those functions with software. People think fintech is so big deal. No. Fintech is nothing. Fintech is just a new coat of paint on the old bank, on the walls. DeFi is a revolutionary thing. Now, of course, banks are not going to go away. However, they need to find ways to create new value in the middle. This is one of the fastest growing industries ever. Also, one more thing about this, assets, Trivergence, right? We talk about physical assets and digital assets. Well, the first digital asset we actually had was money with Bitcoin, but now anything can be digitized. And so when you think about crypto, don't think about cryptocurrencies only. It could be a natural asset token like a carbon credit, or it could be a barrel of oil, which is represented by a token online. Physical, digital coming together. If you want to know more about this, get your phone up. I'm going to show you some books as we go along. Financial Services Revolution, edited by Alex Tapscott. Great book. Supply chains, planes and boats and trains and trucks and and borders and escrow agents and tax authorities and all these various partners and traditional EDI and ERP and so on. Trivergence, imagine if all these things moving around become smart, communicate, where the data is known and there's a shared network state based on a ledger. Imagine what that could do. So these are just some of the projects that we've documented. You know, most of the fish you eat, no, depends where you're from. In Toronto, it's 40%, is incorrectly labeled. It's good fish. It's cheap fish labeled as expensive fish, endangered species labeled as okay. Fish coin is about seafood traceability. And ultimately, you buy a fish in the supermarket, you're going to know everything about it, where it came from, what it ate, what temperature it moved through the supply chain, how long it's been there, and so on. And so this is a big change. Thirdly, healthcare. And I apologize, I'm flying through this, but limited time. Each of these is a whole speech. And this Trivergence is going to transform our healthcare. Think about a hospital brimming with all these smart communicating devices, sharing information that AI can analyze and doing transactions on a blockchain. Just something like our medical records. Right now, there are these physical things, but the University Health Network in Toronto is fourth rated by Newsweek, hospital center in the world. I'm a patient there. Before I leave, after an X-ray, my radiology report is in my record. And they've been experimenting with blockchain. And when that moves to a blockchain platform, I will not only have access to the record, I will own the record, anonymize it, get a second opinion, send it to another hospital. Maybe I'm going to give it to research. I might sell it anonymously and so on. So Trivergence is beginning to transform healthcare. Energy and climate. The Internet of Things will enable billions of smart devices to sense, respond, communicate, and share data. And those things will have the ability to generate, buy, and sell their own electricity. And you have to think about things like the aging power grid today, which is from the industrial age, large sources of broadcasting power to dumb appliances. It's like, I'm a physician, I broadcast to you as a passive recipient. I'm a teacher, I give lectures, get ready, here it comes, you're a passive recipient. I'm a big power generating plant and I send out dumb electricity to you. All of this will change. And oil and gas, of course, is an industry that will go away. Now, the timing on that is not completely clear, but it's like I was speaking to the industry a while ago. I was trying to think of an analogy. It's like you make sports equipment, but the government is outlawing sports and nobody wants to play sports, and sports is all of a sudden threatening the planet. So you got to reinvent your business. And it's sort of a perfect storm for these companies. And the industry continues to operate on outdated platforms, data management processes, rely on manual entry and supervision, and there's security breaches, there's fraud, corruption. But the big thing is that decarbonization is really driving some big change. So we need to rebuild the power grid, and we need to move towards a green energy platform. And on the other side, we have to solve a problem of climate change. This technology can help us. We can tokenize carbon credits and create markets for carbon. Again, physical world, land titles. Do you know that 70% of land titles in the developing world are not enforceable? So you're in Honduras and a dictator comes to power. He says, yeah, you may have a piece of paper that says you own your land, but my government computer says that my friend owns your land. And this happened, actually. The Haryana Land Registry, no corrupt clerk can change a land title for $100 bribe, because land titles go on to a blockchain and Trivergence platform. Identity is a huge topic. I call it digital feudalism. You know, you create this data, the virtual you knows more about you than you do, but you can't remember because you can't remember what you bought a year ago or said, or what medication you had, what diagnosis you had, or what you got on that test, or, you know, whatever. You create the data, but it's expropriated by a new species of business called a digital conglomerate. The top 6 of them own half of NASDAQ, even with the tech crash that's happening right now. Using Trivergence, we can move towards a citizen-owned identity on your physical device, and you own it, and it's sweeping up all this data, and it's analyzing the data to help you do things like better plan your life. It's protecting your privacy, and it's giving you tools to monetize the data as well. And finally, we need to use this technology to reinvent government. You know, I just came back from Dubai. 30% of all government operations are on a supply chain. But it's not just the business of government, it's the nature of governance itself. Think about the United States, the most scrutinized election ever. 30% of the population thinks it's fake because the guy who lost would rather try and destroy democracy to stay in power than to lose. And this is a crisis of legitimacy, and it exists to a certain extent around the world. Legitimacy is the idea that you may disagree with who's in power, but at least you think the system's a good one. Well, you know, we need to fix this problem, and we need to do nothing less than move to a second era of democracy, for the second era of the internet. You know, the first wave of democracy, we established these elected institutions, but there was, citizens were inert, there was a weak public mandate, there's opacity and nobody really knows what's going on. And representatives are beholden to the powerful funders that put them in power. You know, that 90% of Americans want background checks for firearms, but Congress can't seem to pass a law saying that because Congress is not accountable to citizens. They're accountable to the money that put them there. So let's move towards a second wave characterized by a culture of public deliberation, by openness, and let sunlight be the best disinfectant, where citizens are active and representatives are accountable to citizens. Now, we've written a lot about this. You can read my work, Blockchain Revolution. There's a whole chapter. Why don't we have smart votes? You're not just voting for a politician, you're voting for their program. You can have smart money. You know, you send your kid to university, give him some money, hope he spends it on books and tuition and not in the bar. Well, if he were using smart money, he'd go into the bar, order a margarita, and the money would say, sorry, Johnny, I don't do margaritas. You know, I really just do books and tuition. So these are 7 of many, many transformations. And I talk about these in Platform Revolution, and this is the book that introduces Trivergence. So this is a very, very exciting time. And it's a time of great opportunity. And it's also a time of great danger. And it's a new paradigm. A paradigm's a mental model. It puts boundaries around what we think, constrains our actions. Paradigms are often based on assumptions that are so strong that we don't know that they're there. And when you get a new one, these things are received with coolness, conflict. They're received sometimes with hostility and vested interest fight against change. Just look at the blockchain side of all of this. You know, Warren Buffett, smart guy. I put together a few little famous last words. Television won't be able to hold on to any market it captures after 6 months. That's from 20th Century Fox. Ken Olsen, I'm old enough to remember, they were the largest computer company in the world, Digital Equipment Corporation. There's no reason for any individual to have a computer in his home. Leaders of old paradigms have difficulty. And let me end with this, a couple of thoughts for you. You know, when the automobile was introduced into England, the government in its wisdom announced the red flag laws. And it meant that if you were in a car, you had to have a driver, a navigator, and someone with a red flag walking in front of the vehicle so that the horses would not be scared. And I'm told by historians that that actually led to a big delay in the development of the automobile industry in the UK. How is your country, how is your company going to find leadership? Well, it's your opportunity if you will it. And just one more thought on this. You know, when I wrote The Digital Economy, I said that there's this thing called disintermediation. If you're in an information industry, because the internet's about information, you're in the middle, time to do some career planning. I said, like, take bookstores. They're in the middle between publishers and readers. They will go away. And I said, but something new could be created in the middle, re-intermediation. And I said, the opportunities to re-intermediate may be bigger than the old disintermediation dangers. But the problem is that leaders of the old middle are not the ones to create the new middle. 6 months later, a company called Amazon was incorporated, and they re-intermediated and now, of course, expanded and become one of the most valuable companies in the world. So this really comes down to leadership in a time of new paradigms. And I'll just leave this on the screen so you can just take a pic of it. These are 4, I'm very proud of them, books. And The Digital Asset Revolution, July 11th, available on Amazon, but you can pre-order it now. This is a wonderful book with a central piece by Alex Tapscott. And I hope that you find these books helpful to you in understanding Trivergence and this huge transformation that's underway. You know, can you do this? Will your company be able to do this? Trivergence, it's a big idea. You know, I'm glad people don't call me a futurist, although they sometimes do, because I'm a believer that the future is not something to be predicted. The future is something to be achieved. And we can achieve a very different future here, but we need to find the will and the leadership within us to be able to do that. And maybe if we do, I mean, the world's a troubled place, you know, it's too conflicted, it's too unequal, it's too unfair, it's unsustainable. And, you know, a new generation is really being called forth to solve the problems that my generation is leaving. History is calling you forth. And leadership is your personal opportunity if you will it. And if we come together by the millions and tens of millions to use this technology and to drive it under our command, then maybe this smaller, more distributed world that our children and grandchildren inherit might actually be a better one. So let's do this. Thanks very much.